This is Erin. She decided we should ride our road bikes together since we haven't done so in a very long time. She was on her Surly Pacer and we'll do a bike check with that a little later in the video. I was riding my 1983 Trek 500, which now has a 3x9 Shimano group set on it from roughly 2007. Not long after Erin and I met, I built her up a Schwinn World Sport. I believe it was a 1986, and she got into cycling with that bicycle. And then she bought this Pacer off one of our friends and modified it a little over the years, which I said I'll get into later. And this became her exclusive bike. She rode it a ton for a number of years until she built up her own Crossbomb Bora, and then pretty much switched to that being her daily driver. I think it's pretty safe to say she wasn't all that crazy about being back on a road bike, and I don't think you'll be seeing it make a lot more appearances in these videos. She also mentioned later in the ride that she thought the road bike would be a lot faster, and while I do feel that road bikes feel a lot faster, for all intents and purposes, for most of us normal humans, they just aren't that much faster than a drop bar or gravel bike. Also, there's a lot of factors that go into it, the tires and, the bars and stuff like that. But still, I think it's pretty marginal. I've been thinking about road bikes a little bit lately as some of the smaller brands and independent makers, and even some of the slightly bigger brands that kind of align with my style have been releasing road bikes, or some of the bikes that they've had out for a while that I guess I didn't even really consider road bikes until I read a little more about them. This was kind of spurred on by Ritchie releasing their Montebello, and I've been watching some of the coverage by Pathless Pedal and Bike Sauce about that bike. And then also not too long ago, Velo Orange released their Rando bike. This is one question I do kind of have. I mean, I know that between different bikes that the lines are always blurred, gravel bike, ATB, whatever. But endurance road bikes and randonneering bikes, like where the actual difference is. And I was guessing, a rando bike, you'd probably make sure you have mounts for fenders. And then is it just that the Geo might be weighted a little bit? So weighted, that you could put some weight on the front and the bike would handle better, because traditionally, rando bags go on the front of bikes and stuff like that for easy access. I don't know. Let me know below what you consider the difference between endurance road and rando bikes. Also, a little distinction here. When I talk about road bikes, I am not talking about road racing bikes. I'm not talking about super slammed aero carbon bikes that the pros ride. My interest in those only goes as far as that I like watching road racing and knowing what they're on. I don't think me or most of the people who watch this channel really care about those or ride those style of bikes. So I'm talking more about what we consider a touring bike, sports touring bike, and then just the modern versions of endurance road bikes, steel bikes a lot of times, some of the new aluminum bikes and things like that. Let's jump into Erin's bike check and then we'll get back to the topic. So Erin's Surly Pacer is running a bit of a mixed Shimano group set. It's running more modern Sora, Brifters, front derailleur, and rear derailleur, but the group set, the rest of it is left over from 9-speed Ultegra, much older group set, so that would still be the cranks and the brakes. Actually, the rest of the group set is now on the bike that I will be riding later in this video, and we'll talk about that when we get there. The pedals are Fixation, which she used to run with straps and now runs without them, and I'm not sure of the actual year of the frame. The front wheel is a Bontrager Racelight. The rear used to be 2, but we were doing a bike tour, Ohio to Erie, and she had this bike totally loaded down in the rear, and it shredded that hub on the back. And a guy at Brimstone Cycles in Canal Fulton actually sold her one of his personal rear wheels on his day off for almost nothing. So that was awesome. Those tires on there were the 32 millimeter Renaers, whatever they call their 32 mil slicks. We don't know what year this frame is. I don't even know what year Surly stopped making the Pacer, and I'm not sure which bars she has on there, but, typical road drops. So as someone who has a wall full of vintage road bikes, got me thinking, would there ever be a reason that I would buy a new road bike? And I guess a couple of the things that are cool about new road bikes would be the tire clearance. Pretty much all the brands are giving you decent clearance, even on 700C tires. And this even goes for the racier end of the spectrum, which again, we're not discussing here. But when I look at some of the bikes I've ridden, Surly Midnight Special, Salsa War Road, I rode both of those in a 650B configuration, so they had really wide tires. But even in 700C, a lot of these will take 38s and even over 40s. But to me, I guess once I get those kind of wider tires on there, which make way more sense for the road these days. All the research has been done. We know wider tires, wider slicks are faster. You could see all the different road surfaces we were on here, even in the nice neighborhoods, how rough the roads are. So I totally get that. The thing for me, though, is what it's saying is once I get over 40, I'm going to want to ride the bike everywhere, all road, as we say, which is just the reason I always do ride my gravel bike everywhere. I do like the feeling of the get up and go on my vintage bikes, and the twitchiness of the front end I get used to pretty quickly after a few miles. I was also thinking about that on this ride, though, as someone who creates content. I do like the stability of my gravel bike, even for the reason of using my camera and my GoPros. But definitely on descents, and especially off-road descents, it's just where, the gravel bike geometry really does shine. And the other reason, I guess, would be more modern standards if you cared about having disc brakes and things like that. This footage now is from the previous day. As you can see, Erin is back on her crust bomb Bora. I am actually riding my 1996 Team Marin. My Rally is getting its wheels rebuilt, so I don't have that right now, so picked my Marin. The Marin I've converted into a drop bar bike, and as mentioned before, Erin's mixed group set on the Surly Pacer. The rest of that group set is actually on this bike, and this bike is a real mixed group set too, so I have her derailleurs and her shifters, but this is running a Velo Orange crank set, Velo Orange bars and stem, and Mayfac cantilever brakes that came off a vintage cyclocross bike. So yeah, kind of an interesting build, something I just built up for fun. Oh, I should also mention the Spin tri-spoke wheels that Pudgy gave me. And I can't remember if I mentioned that Pudgy pedal pusher in Erin's bike check, but he also gave her that Sora group set that was on the Pacer. So yeah, 2 different days and very different drop bar style bikes. For me now, I am on 26-inch, probably 2.1 tires. And I guess what I just find is it just doesn't really matter to me that much. I would not ride this Team Marin if I was going out with people much faster than me and I was going to trying to be keeping up. But I also probably wouldn't grab one of my vintage road bikes. I would just grab my gravel bike. And none of this is to say that you shouldn't enjoy riding a modern road bike or a vintage road bike. I don't like anything more aesthetically than vintage road bikes. I just think they're the coolest looking bikes that are ever made. Classic triangle, thin tubes, 700C with, reasonably small tires, and the way older group sets look. I love it. And it is a lot of fun, going out and feeling that speed, just that get up and go. But in general, I just don't personally have a ton of purpose for it, and I don't like to be limited in where I can go. And I've said this before, I will ride, and I did ride road bikes off-road and all over for a long time, but it's just not that comfortable, and it's just not that quick. It just takes effort, and yeah. Plus, you just break stuff. On the flip side, I do have an expression that feeling fast is fast. When I get on my Schwinn Peloton that I have Dura-Ace on, it just feels quick, and it makes you want to go quick. So if you go out with that mindset, you get on one of those bikes, I do think it has an effect. And even though I know having wider tires than that bike has would be technically faster, it's still just such that marginal thing that it doesn't really matter either way all that much.
No wonder we can never remember the name.
Well, I'm not going to do this. I did start to think if I really wanted something that felt more modern and road-like, I could get a second, lighter, more delicate wheel set for my gravel bike and put some slick tires on there and switch them out if I did want to go do something where I felt more road-like. Me and Erin have this question that we've always wondered, so maybe there's some roadie on here who could answer. Why do roadies keep their helmets on inside all the time? We get when we watch interviews, stuff with pro racers, when we're in the coffee shop right there in Peninsula, we're always just like, why don't they take their helmets off? Never really understood that one. I'm sure those guys also glanced at me with my EF cap on and they're like, why is this guy wearing a pro cycling cap when he's wearing a baggy t-shirt and regular shorts and Vans Old Schools? So what do you guys think? Do modern non-race road bikes serve a purpose in your mind? Would you buy one? If you have one, what do you ride? What tire width do you ride on your more modern road bike? If you ride vintage road bikes, what tire size do you ride? As you guys know, I'm a big proponent of with the older vintage American bikes that came with the 27-inch outdated standard wheels, switching them to 700 so I could max out the tire clearance a little more. I've also been thinking about something that'd be a cool project for the YouTube channel. I have a Fuji frame that's tall, totally my size. I've never done the conversion from 700 down to 650. So I was thinking that could be interesting, and I don't know which way the build would go. Like, do we build it up towards gravel, or do we build it up towards wide tire road bike? I don't know. If anyone has 650B rim brake wheels they'd be willing to trade, I do have a couple frames or something that might be a cool even swap. So I don't know. Maybe I'll look into that. Let me know if you guys think that would make for a fun video. So I would definitely like to try one of the more modern steel road bikes set up in a more road bike-like configuration. As mentioned, I borrowed Otis's Midnight Special and his War Road, but they were both set up at 650B with wide tires. The War Road did have slicks on it, still took it off-road, and man, did that thing bounce me around. It, smooth, light gravel would be great for, but like chunk, definitely not. And the Midnight Special, he had aggressive tires on there, almost mountain bike tires, and it just didn't really have that, it took away the road bike characteristics. I would like to retry that bike with some 700C wheels and slick tires to know what it really felt like and compare it to my vintage road bikes. I really do think this is why gravel bikes have become so popular, though. I don't think it's a fad. I don't think it's marketing. I don't think it's just a trend. I mean, I think the term gravel bike is a little marketing. Like I said, I prefer the word all-road or something like that. I just think it makes a little more sense. But it doesn't matter. Terms are just terms. We do need words to describe things. Every time you ride a mountain bike, you're not up in the mountains. But anyways, it is just the idea that gravel bike-like bikes split the difference on everything the most. They're really capable on the road. They're really capable off-road. I've underbiked mountain bike trails on mine. So that's why they make so much sense. That's why they've caught on so much. Just kind of how in the 90s people were jumping on mountain bikes a lot after realizing they didn't want to be on slammed road bikes. I think a gravel bike is a way better version of that for most people. More relaxed geometry, more comfortable, can be made more upright if you want it. And then just having tire clearance for the kind of roads that we really have in most places, even if we're talking about pavement. Switching gears a little bit, lol. The last video where I talked about tire pressure a bit led to a lot of interesting comments. I was really surprised to learn that most of the people who commented said, yeah, they usually just give the tire a squeeze before they head out and then just adjust pressure if something feels off, which is pretty much what I do. So I don't know. I found that very interesting. I mean, people had caveats about different kind of bikes where if it's a really fat tire bike, it probably matters more that the pressure is right because it's so low. And then also people who are still running higher pressure tend to check their tires way more often with an actual gauge. Speaking of the channel, I have to thank everybody. This channel just crossed 20,000 subscribers, which is a number I never thought I'd see on here when I started doing the bike content, totally as a hobby and totally for fun. And then really during the pandemic as something to do and just get better at making videos for my professional work. So I do want to give a shout out and thank everybody. And yeah, it's just been a really interesting journey. And if you are watching this video when it comes out, which is on September 9th, we are doing a meetup ride in Pittsburgh on Friday, September 13th. All that information is over in the Discord. It always is for meetups and rides and just a fun little community where we all chat about bikes and help each other out with bike issues. And what the heck, while I'm talking about my channel, I might as well ask you to do some of the YouTube things. Give this video a like, subscribe to the channel, check out our little store below if you do want to support us some more. So yeah, road bikes. Is there a purpose for them anymore? Do you have a purpose for one? Do you own one? Let me know. Do you own a vintage one? Have you bought a modern one? I'd be really curious to find out. So that Trek 500 I was riding, I do have thousands of miles on, but I do think I should get back and ride some of my other road bikes and maybe make a video about it. Maybe it's one video for, comparing them all and the differences and going back to doing some down tube shifting and stuff like that. Also, don't put your stuff in the bike lane. I will kick it over. People often ask about my other bikes. Most of my bikes do have videos about them. There is a playlist on the channel page about my bikes, so check it out. It's not exhaustive. I would like to fill that out over time. But anyways, thanks as always for watching. I appreciate you. I will see you in the next video. Peace.